8 years. That is how long I showed up early, stayed late, and gave every ounce of effort I had to a company that did not even bother to hide how little they valued me. You would think loyalty meant something. You would think experience counted. But when I found out the intern sitting 2 desks away from me, who still asked how to send a calendar invite, was making more than I was after nearly a decade, something in me finally broke. Before I continue my story, let me know where you are watching from in the comments and hit that like and subscribe button. I am Nyra, 34 years old. And until a few weeks ago, I was the operations coordinator at Covey Systems. Not a glamorous title, I know, but anyone who worked closely with me knew how much of the company's day-to-day function was built on the systems I had designed, the crisis calls I answered at 11 p.m., and the logistics I quietly kept running when everyone else was panicking. I was the one who trained the new hires when the managers were too busy. I was the one who pulled all-nighters before product launches. I was the one who onboarded interns and calmed angry clients. And I was paid less than the coffee-fetching college student who forwarded emails all day. It was not a slip-up, I asked, point blank. And you know what my manager said? Company policy. I asked again, thinking maybe I had misunderstood. You mean the intern is earning more than me? He shrugged like it was out of his hands. Compensation for interns is competitive right now, he said, like he was reading from a script. Then added, if you are not happy, you are free to leave. Those were his exact words. If you are not happy, you are free to leave. With that smug smile that said he thought I would never actually do it. That I was just some overworked, underpaid cog who did not have options. I walked back to my desk in a daze. 8 years of my life. My 20s. My weekends. My sleep. All reduced to a corporate policy and a smirk. I did not cry. Not then. That came later in my car in the office parking lot, while the building's neon logo blinked above me like a cruel joke. But once the tears stopped, something shifted. There was a stillness inside me. Not sadness. Not defeat. It was something sharper. Colder. A decision forming. They wanted to treat me like I was disposable? Fine. But they were going to feel it when I left. I spent the next 2 days doing what I had always done, my job. Flawlessly. I answered every email, organized every task, and cleaned up every mess before anyone even noticed it existed. I kept smiling. I kept nodding in meetings. But behind the scenes, I was building a quiet, meticulous plan. Not a tantrum. Not a scandal. Just the kind of absence that cannot be ignored. You see, I was not just the coordinator. I was the only one who actually understood how the operations backend worked. Not because it was complicated, but because everyone else was too lazy to care. The documentation? Written by me. The vendor relationships? Managed by me. The crisis procedures? Memorized by me. The backup processes they assumed existed? Only in my head. I did not sabotage anything. That would have been childish. I just stopped shielding them from their own incompetence. First, I quietly forwarded everything I had ever created for them. Processes, manuals, vendor contracts, to my personal email, just in case. Then I typed up a clean, professional resignation letter. I printed it out. No drama, no emotion, just a single page with my name at the bottom and a line that read, effective immediately. The next morning, I arrived early. Earlier than usual. The office was still empty. I walked into the executive floor for the first and last time. The receptionist was not there yet. I went straight to the CEO's door and slid the envelope onto his desk. On top of it, I left something else, my company badge, my login token, and a little flash drive labeled, "You are going to need this." That was not a threat. It was the last gift I would give them. Then I walked out. No announcement. No email. No goodbye party. Just silence. By 11 a.m., the messages started. First from my team, then from my manager, then from the IT department. They could not access key tools. Vendors were calling. Something with the billing cycle was off. The logistics dashboard was broken. The intern? She was panicking. I did not answer. I just watched the notifications pile up. Around 3 p.m., I got a call from the CEO's assistant. straight to voicemail. Her voice was calm but urgent. Hi Nyra, this is Madison. I think there's been some kind of mistake. We saw your resignation letter this morning and the flash drive. The CEO would like to speak with you directly if you're available. No, I was not. By the next morning, 3 departments were stuck. I was not malicious. I had done nothing illegal. I had simply removed myself, and suddenly, everything they had taken for granted unraveled. The 3rd day after I left, I turned off my phone. Not because I was avoiding them, but because the buzz of desperation had become constant. The thing is, when a company refuses to see you, refuses to pay you fairly, refuses to respect what you contribute, they also refuse to prepare for what happens when you are gone. That was not my fault. That was theirs. When I turned my phone back on that evening, I had 74 unread messages. The most surprising one? A personal email from the CEO himself. No assistant. No copy to HR. Just him. The subject line read, "Let's talk." I did not open it right away. I took my time. I made tea. Sat down in the apartment I could barely afford for years because I kept trusting that next year they would fix my salary. And when I finally read it, it was everything I expected. Concern masquerading as kindness. A hint of regret. A lot of questions. You were a valuable part of the team. I wish we had talked earlier. Can we find a way forward? What stood out most was this. The systems you built are more critical than we realized. I stared at that sentence for a long time. More critical than we realized. They realized it now. When I was gone. When the intern making more than me was sitting in meetings quietly hoping no one asked her to actually run the things she was supposedly being groomed to replace me for. I never wanted this. I wanted fairness. I wanted to be seen. I wanted someone to say, 8 years? Let us fix this. Instead, they shrugged. Company policy. They had asked me to stay late the week before and finish onboarding 2 interns. One of them was polite, the other, not so much. She had interrupted me mid-sentence and said, "Do you ever get bored doing the same job for so long?" That question came back to me now like an echo. No, I had not been bored. I had been tired, exhausted, depleted, but I had not been bored. What bored me now was the predictability of their panic. The way they underestimated someone just because she did not shout or complain or storm out. I forwarded the CEO's email to my lawyer. Yes, I had a lawyer. A quiet woman named Priya who had once helped me settle a contract dispute with a freelance client. She had warned me to keep records, emails, performance reviews, pay stubs. And I had. Not because I was planning revenge, but because after years of watching less qualified people leapfrog me, I had learned to cover myself. Priya read the email and called me immediately. "This is good," she said. "They are nervous. Let them be. You do not owe them anything." She was right. I did not. But I still had that flash drive. The one I left on the CEO's desk. I had built that drive with care. It did not contain anything damaging. No private data. No client leaks. Just a simple index of every operational workflow I had created. It was like a skeleton key. Anyone with time and enough technical sense could follow it, assuming they were willing to admit how little they knew. Apparently, no one was. By the end of the week, I got another email. This one from HR. "We would love to schedule an exit interview. We believe in learning from our people." Learning. I almost laughed. Where was this hunger to learn when I had quietly requested a salary review 3 months ago? When I had stayed behind on my birthday to finish an overdue supply chain audit? When I had submitted a plan to reduce shipping errors by 15% and it was credited to my manager during the all-hands? That is when it became clear. They did not want to learn. They wanted me to come back. Quietly. Conveniently. They wanted to plug the leak without admitting the pipe was broken. But I was done patching leaks. I did not respond. Instead, I focused on rebuilding my own life. For the first time in years, I slept properly. I ate without rushing. I updated my resume, not because I was desperate, but because it felt empowering. I had no shortage of recommendations. Even some clients I had handled through Covey reached out to me privately and offered freelance work. That is when I got another message, this time from a senior manager I used to report to years ago. Someone I had always liked. His tone was different. Less corporate. More human. I heard what happened. Just wanted to say, none of us could believe it. We lost something huge when you walked out. If you ever want to talk, coffee's on me. I met him that weekend. Not for coffee, just a walk in the park near my apartment. He asked if I was okay. I said I was. He nodded, and then he said something that stayed with me. I do not know who signed off on the intern salaries, or who thought that was a good idea. But it is all chaos now. The board's asking questions. The CEO's panicking. And the irony? They're trying to bring in consultants to recreate your workflows. Consultants. At double the price they paid me. I said nothing. Just smiled. That is what made it priceless. They had the audacity to tell me, if you do not like it, leave. And I did. Calmly. Quietly. Without fire or drama. And the silence I left behind made more noise than I ever could. Still, I was not finished. I had one more move left. Something that would not just sting, but leave a permanent mark. I never saw myself as someone who would burn a bridge. It just was not in me. I always believed in leaving quietly, professionally, with my head high. But some bridges are already on fire when you are standing on them. They just do not let you see the smoke until it is too late. After I met with the senior manager, whose name was Lennox, by the way, I started hearing more. Messages trickled in from old coworkers, not the ones who had ignored me, but the ones who had watched all those years from the sidelines. They were all saying the same thing in different ways. They are scrambling without you. I do not know how you did all that and stayed so calm. I wish I had your guts. And then the one that stayed with me. We were all underpaid, but they gave us just enough to keep us quiet. You were the first to walk away. I was not trying to be an example. I was just tired of swallowing it all. But what they did not know was that I had planned something beyond just walking away. Remember that intern I told you about? The one who asked if I ever got bored? Turns out, she was not just there for the summer. She was hired directly by someone in upper management, a friend of a friend. They were grooming her to be a permanent fixture. That had been the plan all along. Bring in someone cheaper, shinier, and faster. Phase me out slowly while I trained her. They probably assumed I would never notice. That I was too tired or too loyal or too grateful to question it. That intern, Sadie, had no idea how exposed she was. And I had no intention of hurting her. This was not her fault. But when I left, I made sure to remove every shortcut, every cheat sheet, every Nyra fix I had slipped into the workflows to keep things moving. Everything she depended on was gone. And she panicked. I heard from one of the junior developers that she had a full breakdown in the middle of a vendor meeting. Could not explain the logistics diagram I had created. Tried to bluff her way through it, and ended up misrepresenting the entire supply schedule. A week's worth of deliveries delayed. That was not revenge. That was a mirror. But now, back to the final move. I never wanted to sue them. Legal battles drag on. They drain you. And I did not want to pay out from a place that devalued me. I wanted proof. A record. So I asked Priya to help me do something very specific. We filed a formal complaint, not just about the pay gap, but the internal memo that approved intern salaries without wage parity reviews. Priya had already helped me collect everything. Emails with HR. My salary history. My performance reviews, which were always glowing. The intern contracts. The manager's comment, "If you are not happy, you are free to leave," was even captured in writing in a follow-up email. We submitted the file to the State Labor Board. Quietly, professionally. No threats. No press. Just facts. But I did one more thing. I wrote a letter. Not an email. A letter. Handwritten. And I mailed it to every board member at Covey Systems. Took me 3 hours to find all their names. But I did. Each letter was the same. Calm. Factual. Precise. I told them how I had spent 8 years streamlining operations, saving costs, reducing errors, and training staff. I outlined my job history, salary stagnation, and the moment I discovered an intern was earning more than me. I included screenshots, pay comparisons, my resignation letter, and I closed it with this. I was not asking for a reward. I was asking for fairness. You did not just lose a coordinator. You lost the person who kept your systems running while you were busy ignoring them. I signed my name and left a phone number they could use if they wanted a real explanation for why things were falling apart. 3 days after the letters were delivered, I got a call from one of the board members. Her name was Nyra. She had been brought on recently, someone from outside tech, with a finance background. Her voice was measured, respectful. I am sorry, she said. We failed you. I do not know what will happen next, but I can promise you this is being taken seriously now. And she meant it. I did not want to go back. That chapter was closed. But Nyra told me something I did not expect. The CEO had been summoned to an internal review. The company had opened a formal investigation into compensation discrepancies, and several department heads were being questioned. They were not doing it out of integrity. They were doing it because I made it impossible to ignore. No yelling, no threats, just facts and silence. And that flash drive? It became the blueprint, not just for operations, but for the failure they tried to cover. Still, I was not done, because there was one person who still had not reached out. The one who shrugged at me in that meeting and said, "If you are not happy, you are free to leave." His name was Callan, my direct manager. The man who smiled as he dismissed 8 years of work with a shrug and a line straight out of a bad manual. If you are not happy, you are free to leave. I had replayed that moment in my head more times than I could count. Not because it hurt, but because it told me everything I needed to know about how they saw me. I had not heard from him once since I walked out. Not a call, not an email, nothing. And that told me something too. Either he was hiding behind someone else's silence, or he was still convinced I was replaceable. Turns out it was both. About 10 days after the board letters went out, I heard from Lennox again, the senior manager I trusted. This time, he sounded different. Tired. Careful. He asked if I had time for a short call, off the record. I agreed. No recording. Just a quiet walk near the same park. He did not waste time. They are cleaning house, he said. The board is furious. Callan has been placed on leave. HR is being audited. They are trying to restructure everything, salaries, workflows, reporting. I did not say anything at first. I let him talk. I wanted to hear it all. They brought in a consultant to replicate your systems, he continued. It took her 1 day to tell them it would cost 6 figures and 6 months minimum just to reach your baseline. You made them realize they built an entire operation on your back and never even noticed. That was when I finally spoke. I tried to tell them, I said, quietly, for years. I know, he replied. They ignored you, and now they are paying for it. I asked one thing. Did Callan say anything? Lennox hesitated. He said he thought you would not actually leave. He said people like you never do. People like me, the dependable ones, the quiet ones, the ones who stay late and skip breaks and cover when others mess up, the ones they assume will never quit, never push back, never walk out. He was right. People like me do not leave often. But when we do not come back. I thanked Lennox for the honesty. We parted ways, without any promises. I did not want a job. I did not want sympathy. I just wanted clarity. And I was finally getting it. But the closure I needed came in a different form. A week later, I received an official letter from Covey Systems. Certified mail. Formal envelope. Inside was a written apology from the board, signed, stamped, and worded carefully. They acknowledged the discrepancy in compensation. They acknowledged my integral role in operational continuity. They deeply regretted the oversight and the treatment I received. And then came the offer. A severance package. Triple what I was earning in my final year. A non-disclosure agreement. And a quiet clause stating that if I ever returned in the future, I would be guaranteed a senior advisory role. I read it twice. Then a third time. Then I put it aside and called Priya. She read it too. Her response was short. You do not need them. This is not about money. You already won. And she was right. I did not sign the NDA. I did not take the severance. I did not want hush money. I wanted my story to live, without edits, without erasure. I wanted every person who had ever been underpaid, overlooked, dismissed, and told to just be grateful, to know they were not crazy. So I started writing. Not for revenge. Not to expose anyone. Just to tell the truth. I published an anonymous essay online, walking through the facts. No company names. No personal attacks. Just the story. It spread faster than I expected. People related. People shared. People reached out. Recruiters, other companies, even small businesses asking if I would consider consulting. I had never considered myself anything more than a behind-the-scenes person. But now, I was being asked to help build systems the right way from the beginning. With fairness. With transparency. With dignity. That is what made my final move priceless. Not the silence I left behind. Not the panic they felt. Not even the apology they mailed me a month too late. It was the fact that I walked away with everything they tried to take from me, my dignity, my confidence, my work, and turned it into something bigger. And as for Callan? Well, he emailed me. Finally. 2 lines. Nyra, I did not realize how much we relied on you. I regret how things ended. I hope you are doing well. I did not reply. I did not need to. Because the truth is, when you finally stop waiting for recognition and instead recognize your own worth, everything changes. I never thought walking away would give me peace. I assumed it would leave me angry, bitter, or at least shaken. But strangely, it did the opposite. Leaving was the cleanest, most liberating thing I had ever done. Because once I stepped away from Covey systems, I realized how small their world had become, how much I had shrunk myself to fit inside it. And once you stop shrinking, you do not go back. I kept everything professional. Every legal form, every record, every detail of my work quietly filed away. Not because I was afraid, but because I had finally learned how to protect myself. For years, I gave everything to them without conditions. Loyalty. Time. Solutions. Silence. But now I had something I had not had since my early 20s. Control. My anonymous essay, just a straightforward retelling of my experience, kept gaining momentum. People were not just reading it, they were sharing their own stories. I started receiving messages from people across the country. Operations managers, assistants, developers, warehouse coordinators, and especially women, so many women, telling me the same thing. I thought I was the only one. One story stood out. A woman in her 40s who had spent 13 years at a logistics firm, training interns who came in at nearly double her salary. When she asked why, they said, "That's just the market." Her story mirrored mine in eerie ways. The same indifference. The same erasure. She said reading my story gave her the courage to finally resign and walk into a better-paying role within 2 weeks. That is when it hit me. This was not about me anymore. I took on a few consulting projects. Small startups, mostly. Ones that were struggling with structure. They were not glamorous clients, but they were honest. One founder, barely 30, told me, "I do not want to build a company that depends on someone like you and then forgets her name." I helped him design an operational system that did not need heroics to survive. Everything documented. Everything transparent. No one underpaid. No one invisible. Just good work done well and fairly. Eventually, I was invited to speak at a small business leadership panel. They asked me to share my experience. I agreed, still anonymously. I told the room of founders and managers a story. Not a warning, not a lecture. Just a story about a woman who did everything right and was told she could leave if she was not happy. And so, she did. Afterward, a woman approached me. She had tears in her eyes. "I think I'm about to be that woman," she said. I looked at her, paused, and replied, "Then do not wait until they leave a flash drive on the desk. Make them see you now." And maybe that was the most priceless part of all, not just that I walked away and they felt it, but that I turned that moment into something bigger than revenge. Something useful. Something lasting. But there is one last detail I have not shared. One final thread that ties it all together. About 3 months after I left, I got a letter forwarded to my home address. No return name, just the Covey system stamp. I almost tossed it, but curiosity got the better of me. Inside was a single sheet of paper, handwritten, from Sadie, the intern. It said, Nyra. I know I probably seemed like I did not care when I was there, but after you left, I saw it. Everything. What you held together, what you managed, how no one ever said thank you. I was overpaid and underprepared. You trained me, and I did not even realize you were protecting the company from itself. I just wanted you to know, I have started over. And I think about your silence that day often. It taught me more than anything else has. I hope someday I can be the kind of professional you are. I sat with that letter in my lap for a long time, because that is what this was all about. Not punishment, not anger, not even justice, but clarity. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can leave behind is not chaos. It is the truth. Uncovered, undeniable, and echoing in the very walls that once ignored it.
So, no.
I did not get the title. I did not get the raise. I did not get the recognition. I got something better. Myself back.